The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rory Samper, Solutions Architect here at XTM International, here for our webinar, What's New in XTM 12.4. I'm going to go ahead and just wait a couple more minutes to give everyone a chance to join. So just go on mute, and we will start shortly here. All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. Just a little housekeeping, just let everyone know that you are on mute. Everyone that is joined is on mute, but you do have access to the questions box. We'll have a dedicated Q&A portion at the end of this webinar. So feel free to enter any questions that you have along the way there. I'll try to keep an eye on it. Otherwise, we'll address those at the very end. One other point I just wanted to call out here is that this is the What's New in XTM 12.4 webinar. Very excited to bring it to you. A lot of cool stuff in this update. My name is Rory Samper, Solutions Architect here at XTM. But one thing I just wanted to point out is that this webinar isn't fully comprehensive as far as all the updates that have come out for 12.4, but mainly focusing on the updates that are that will impact the largest user group. But if you would like to go ahead and see all of the updates, you can go to our Academy, to xtm.cloud, to our webpage, to the Academy, to Release Notes, and to the XTM Cloud 12.4 Release Notes here. As you can see, it's a very, very deep list, as they are usually with our major updates. So feel free to look here as well. But again, I'll cover the majority of these topics. But there are some things here, such as the XTM Portal, which honestly could have its entirely own webinar. So instead of trying to squeeze everything into one, I thought it just would make more sense to cover only the most relevant topics. And with that, go ahead and get started. Today we'll be covering the XTM Workbench. I know it's everyone's favorite topic, usually the most important for these. Specifically, the simplified Workbench settings, the customization for Workbench configuration, and then how you can customize a Workbench layout. We'll also be looking at a couple of the XTM UI enhancements, including the bilingual terminology extraction and the LQA options, which are now available within the UI. We'll also go over a couple of the REST API updates. We have come out with a couple of different methods that have been added to the XTM REST API. As well as updates and upgrades to our XTM Connect, or the fully integrated connectors that we have within XTM. And so for part of the live demo, we'll go through the Workbench quick, go through the bilingual terminology extraction, the LQA options, and then I'll touch on our multilingual configuration with multi-Excel as well. That will go ahead and get started by logging into the system. As you can see here, this is obviously my demo account. Anyone that is on our multi-tenant cloud will already have access to 12.4. We should be releasing 12.4 to our private servers very shortly. I'm going to go ahead and start with our settings. So this is not available by default. So this is something that needs to be modified, obviously, by an administrator on your XTM instance. So if you don't have access to your settings or the configuration and the settings option, you just need to speak to whoever is an administrator for your XTM account. But by going to configuration and settings, and then translation, let's scroll down to the bottom. We'll see, workflow access rights. You'll now see this will be unchecked by default, but the XTM Workbench customization. So this is newly added, so this wouldn't be here before. And again, it will be unchecked by default. But as soon as you check this box, you see a couple of different options up here. One is to enable XTM Workbench customization. Another is to allow users to customize XTM Workbench. And then define simplified mode. So one thing that we have added within XTM in 12.4 is the addition of the simplified mode within Workbench. Essentially what this lets you do is at the administrator level is to set what features you would like visible or hidden within XTM Workbench. So obviously especially useful if there are parts within the Workbench that are never used for your program or your linguists never utilize, really to just eliminate a feature that isn't being used, to get rid of any kind of noise and just to make the Workbench simpler and a cleaner look to it. So I won't eliminate anything from here just because I wanted to kind of show you more of the customization feature. But anything that is defined here, so if you say have comments from visible to hidden and save here, comments will not be available for any of your linguists that have access to the simplified Workbench. That access to the simplified Workbench does need to be turned on as well. So you can define which users see the simplified Workbench versus the full Workbench. And I'll show you how to do that shortly here. And then we also have the allow users to customize their XTM Workbench. So having this enabled allows your linguists to, obviously on a more case-by-case basis, modify their own Workbench to how they see and how they would like to have different modules and different units within the Workbench be displayed. And we'll obviously go through that as well. So once you have your simplified changes set, what you need to go to is your users. And this will be set at the user level under their access rights. So I'll go here to my example linguist, to their access rights. And as you can see here under the editor, Workbench, open a Workbench in simplified mode. So if this is enabled on any given user, they will open the Workbench with those limitations or with those modules hidden that you have set within your configuration settings. Again, this won't be by default, so you need to enable it on a user by user basis. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the Workbench to show you how this looks in reality. Come into my workflow, open up the Workbench as that linguist. So opening up the Workbench, obviously at first you're going to see typically just what you would see now, which is the default. But by going to settings, because I have enabled this user to modify, or all users to modify the Workbench for themselves, I can go to the go to the customized view. This will be under your settings, customized view, and you can see that there are options. I have everything enabled now, but options to essentially get rid of anything I'm not using. So maybe I don't have terminology, or I don't want to be looking at inline tags or comments or history. I can simply get rid of, say, history, terminology, and inlines. I can apply it, and you'll see that those are no longer there. I can actually get rid of comments here just to get rid of that entire doc panel. And the entirety of that panel is no longer there. So if it's something that I'm not using as a linguist, or that isn't necessarily important to me if I'm, say, reviewing, I can go ahead and get rid of those, and you can see it's now create a lot more space and just a cleaner look to make it easier to use. You can even go as far as removing coordinates and matches here. So you see now I have nothing but the actual source to target segmentation. If at any point though, if you would like to go ahead and restore the default layout, you can do so here. So feel free to play around. It won't be the end of the world if I'll need to enable those back first. So you can disable them, enable them as you see fit. So maybe if you're using them on one project, this isn't permanent, so you can reconfigure it at any point in time so that you can use it only when needed. Another is that you now have the ability to kind of drag and drop and reorient your workbench kind of as you see fit. For instance, if I drag and hold matches here, bring them to the top, I can now put matches on top, concordance on bottom. I still have my terminology, inline tags, comments, and history tabs here. Maybe I want to bring this up here as well, or I can have it have its own unique row. So again, this is really useful if you are using maybe certain, if you're always looking at the matches, or if I was looking at inlines or history or what have you. It gives you the ability to make the workbench look exactly how you like it to be. So again, this might not be super useful in this particular configuration I have set up here, just because you'll obviously want to be able to see the cat tool at its maximum. But you want to give you some of the options from what you can see. This does additionally actually work with the visual mode as well. So let's see if I enable here, the visual mode pop up like normally would. Going to restore to my default layout. So this is again going to be the default layout, restore that. So again, if you're playing around with it, just go to restore and it'll bring you back to how you are used to or normally have it. But at this point, maybe all I want to be seeing is the visual mode as well as segmentation. We'll go ahead and customize my view. Get rid of all the docked panel information. You can see I now only have the left to right segmentation and the visual mode segmentation. But even then, say I will prefer the segments to be above. I can do so here and move that around. So a lot of different options as far as how you can modify and just how you prefer to work. Again, I'll restore the default here, just so next time I come in, I'm not lost and confused. These are the customization of the workbench. Again, if you have the simplified workbench on that are set at the system level settings, those will just be automatically removed from here. There's nothing that a linguist or reviewer or anyone in the workbench would need to do. They would simply log in and say if you were to remove the terminology tab, that terminology tab would just simply not be there for them to customize. And it does work in a waterfall permissions level. So if something is not available on the system level in the simplified view, it won't be available to add or remove here. Put that back to the default. Those are the updates to the workbench layouts. Another item I'd like to show is LQA. So LQA within the, on a global settings basis, go to LQA. This is actually something that was available in 12.3 as a back-end setting, but is now available within the UI itself. So if you come to your, again, your configurations, your settings. So again, this is an admin level configuration. And you go to LQA options tab here, which is there now. And you can choose how LQA is calculated, whether it's based on the source word count or target word count. You can also choose if you want to show the percentage symbol, this being the score within the LQA tab. And you can also add a reference word count. This is specifically used if you have you may have 750 words, for instance, that you have there. This would then compare not only the word count within the project itself, but also your reference word count. So if you have kind of that basis per level. If you have any options or any questions around the LQA options, there's also obviously the helpful tooltip here on the side, which shows the formulations, the calculations that the LQA scores are based on, as well as you can see here there are a couple different options between the target word count, source word count, and then some further information around how the reference word count, or WRWC, is calculated. With that, I'll jump over to our term extraction. So many of you may be familiar with our alignment feature. It's a very, very popular feature within XTM. The alignment feature allows you to take a source text and target text, maybe something that you didn't have translation memory for, or was translated outside of either XTM or your previous system, and you just don't have that. Within XTM, you can align. So this is already existing. This has actually been a feature for quite some time. Again, a pretty popular feature. So you can upload your source file, your source target, obviously choosing your languages as well. The addition here, though, is that you can now have this option to extract bilingual terminology. So what XTM is doing, while it's not only aligning the text, but it's also looking for terms. So if you were using our terminology extraction feature during project creation, this is a very similar idea, except for it actually will give you both the source and the target text. I'm not going to do a live example of it here, just because it can take a little bit of time. Obviously, for demo purposes, I don't want you waiting a couple of minutes, but based on the source size. So I have a alignment already prepared for you to see, just so you can get an idea of what that looks like. So this is an example of English to, you can see, Italian. So you can see we'll pull out the term itself, surface forms of that term, the frequency, which file it was found in, all the context around that file. And so this is going to be really similar to, again, that the terminology extraction that you can do on project creation. However, it is this portion that is now new. So it'll pull out not just the English term or the source term, but also the target term. Give you the context that that was found, this additional surface forms that was found. You can see it'll give you quite a bit of information. What this allows you to do is that while you're aligning text, sorry, my audio cut out there for a second. This allows you to do is when you're aligning text, not only to generate obviously your TMs, to bolster your TMs, you can also do it at the same time to bolster your terminology. So you can take this file with just a small amount of modification and import it to your terminology. So you can build that robust terminology that was so important. All right. So with that, one last item, I'm not actually able to show this live within the UI, but one item I did want to touch on was our multilingual configuration for a multi-Excel option within the Workbench, or as part of the file configuration. Currently, if you work with Excel files, you'll know that you would need to say where the source is going to be coming from, say column A, where the target should be placed, say column B. In your Excel files, especially multilingual Excel files, we now have a configuration available where you can denote the header names, not specifically the columns themselves. So what this allows you to do is if you have maybe five different Excels coming from different parts of your company, or different resources, everyone kind of formats their Excels a bit differently, and one Excel may say English for, if it's an English to whatever target language project, the source may say English, or the source may say new, or the source column header may say ENG. What we now can do is do multiple configurations within the same analysis template to identify where all those are. So regardless of which column they exist in, which file they exist in, XTM will search through the entirety of the file until it either finds those and then pulls that in as the source text, or goes through and doesn't find anything. So it allows for a lot more configuration and flexibility when you're uploading those files. And again, that can be through many different configurations and different file formats, even within the same zip file. So if you were upload 5 Excel files in a single zip, and they all have all those different configurations, as long as they are stored within the analysis template, you should be good to go. That will be everything from the UI standpoint. Jump back to our slide deck here. Next, we just want to go over a couple of the REST API updates that we have for 12.4. You're now able to find information about modifications made to projects within a selected date range. The key part here is the selected date range. So now you can find which modifications were made to projects, again, within any given time frame. Currently was not available via the REST API. There's now a method that allows you to obtain manual time tracking. This can be at the job level, the target language level, file, step, and bundle level. So it gives you a lot of different options there as well. There's now a method available to retrieve updating existing TM tag groups and tags. So currently, or previously, that would have to be part of a project template or would have to essentially be assigned beforehand. Now you can do that as part of the method when you're creating a project via the API, not only to apply tag groups to a project itself, but to also update existing tag groups. So you wouldn't need to go into the UI, modify a tag group, come out of XTM, go into the API, and then to create the project. You can do that all within the API now. There are some additional sorting options with the get projects method, essentially allowing you to sort the projects by name and then information that's coming back from XTM. And you can now update the pre-processing due dates in continuous projects. Again, this is all via the REST API. We have our XTM Connect. So again, this is going to be our integrated connectors. We have these in obviously every major release. We had a couple for WordPress. First being the WordPress connector now supports translating posts and pages that have been created with reusable blocks of content. This currently was not available. Secondly, the WordPress connector can now also seamlessly handle files with custom post types. We have an update to our Kentico connector, which now support 12.0. I believe is the latest version of Kentico. And our Marketo connector. So it's now been enhanced. You can set different assets under the same Marketo program all at once. And we'll get to the Q&A portion quickly here. I just wanted to point out a couple of things, though. One is if anyone here is attending the remote Loc World, obviously given the times, I hope everyone's safe. But Loc World will be held remote starting tomorrow. XTM is sponsoring a session. My colleagues Sarah Basile and Alex Akakis will be at 12:30 to 1 o'clock. Or Cars That Go Fast, Innovation in Computer-Aided Technology. This is a great topic, a huge topic, obviously going to the future, how AI is affecting not only, or improving, not only translations, but the technology behind them. And also as a precursor to that, if you are curious, if we go to our website and go to our blog, just last week we introduced XTM Tech Talks. You can find the recording clicking here. Get 414 here. You can find the recording here. It's short. It's only 11 minutes, but it's a great read, or great listen. Great read. Great listen as a precursor to that to the Loc World, and also just in general. So we'll be having a lot more tech talks coming up. So it's a great resource, specifically around. See, for this, it'll be our computer-aided review, or CAR, or the tech talk here, which is around our vector space, which is a lot to do with our AI technology, specifically with auto placement of inlines and those types of features. So this is only 13, so these are relatively short, quick, but very good and very useful conversations around those topics. And with that, let's see if we have any questions here. All right, we 2. All right, first question, is it possible to have a simplified mode for SMEs and the full workbench? Assume that'd be full workbench for linguists. Yes, that is possible. So as you seen here, so this question is around if you can have some users have the simplified workbench and other users not have the simplified workbench. And how you would do that would be if you go into the, well, obviously your settings and configurations, you would have whatever you would like for the SMEs to be under. You would remove whatever features you wouldn't like the SMEs to have, or the subject matter experts. You could save those so they wouldn't be hidden features. Go to the SME users, and then you would only have the SME users have that access rights of open workbench and simplified mode. So every other user in the system, obviously including your linguists, maybe your other reviewers, would open up the workbench in the normal mode with full access, and it'd only be your SMEs then that you would enable this for, and then they would have they would open it up with those simplified limitations that you have set. Is there a way to, the next question, is there a way to change the workbench setting for a batch of pre-existing users all at once? They're currently, I think this would be around that, the open workbench simplified mode. If these were set, anything you did with the simplified mode would obviously be in place for those users that had that enabled. But anything, just reading the question one more time. I don't believe there's a way to do it for pre-existing users as far as if you're trying to customize what they're seeing in the workbench. So I think that would be around more this setting. I think that question is probably more around the allow users to customize workbench, and if it's possible to essentially preset that, which I don't believe that is available currently, but I would have to check on that one just to make sure. Another question, when we import new users, is the workbench setting an allowed field in the import file? I believe that's the same question. So this is obviously a good topic. As I said, I don't believe so. I don't believe we have that ability quite yet, other than obviously the ability to, if you have the simplified mode defined, and then have access to the simplified mode at the user level. That would essentially have that same impact, or that same effect. Another question, to apply your changes in the settings, you don't have to reanalyze the projects. Correct. No need to reanalyze the projects. It will happen actually they'll be for both of these options. As soon as it's enabled, either at the user level for the simplified workbench, or if you allow users to customize XTM Workbench, the linguist will need to reopen the workbench, but not reanalyze the project. Another question, are you planning to implement a feature to add remove TMs per project? As far as I know right now, if you want to add an additional TM to a project, that's not possible without making a new project. I think that would be more of a roadmap question. More than happy to look into that for you. I don't know that off the top of my head. But reach out to us at training@xtm-intl.com. Be more than happy to get you some more information around that as far as what we have currently available or coming up on the roadmap. Got a clarification question. To clarify, I do not want to manually change access rights to hundreds of users. Now that we have new simplified mode control, I want to change many users in a batch. I'd have to check on that one, if that's possible to do via the batch import process to modify those. Again, if you want to reach out to training at xtm-intl.com or your account manager, sounds like you're an existing user, account manager or solutions architect, I'm more than happy to go through the options there with you. Another question, are customizations tied to the user vendor or the project itself? The customizations, I assume we're talking about the allow user to customize XTM Workbench. That would be applied to the user themselves. So if a user makes customizations that they would like to see, it doesn't impact any other users, which obviously a very important part of that development, as everyone, the whole idea is to allow each user to uniquely work within the workbench as is best for them. Nope, you're welcome, yeah. How does XTM support MT? This is a kind of a broader question. I have a little bit of time, so I'll go ahead and answer that as this is our last question. But XTM supports MT essentially through, we'll go through our configuration to our settings, translation, and then machine translation. So here you can see we have a number of, these are all of our fully integrated MT engines within XTM. As part of those, you'll see this in the release notes for 12.4 if you go and look at it, but we just added iconic integration or integration to the iconic MT engine. So we're constantly updating these, obviously as the engines themselves evolve and as new engines come online that have high demand, we continue to add them here. But essentially from a process standpoint within XTM is just the gateway. So if you had, say, Google Translate, you would have your own API key, your own API worked out with Google, with Google to use our MT engine. So you would simply put that information in here, say under Google Machine Translation, put your API key here. This could include obviously normal Google Translation, Google MT, or Google AutoML. And then at the project level, you can then select that engine. So you'd synchronize, this would connect XTM with your account on Google. Then during project creation, you'd simply select that engine and it would run through the workbench to XTM. So your content will be processed, segmented, ran against your TM based on your configurations. That would then be sent to the MT engine, would come back into the workbench and be displayed to your linguists. There's no additional cost or anything within XTM to do that. That's all just out of the box. And again, the management of that API key is all done directly between yourself and the MT engine of your choice. And I believe that is all of our questions. I'll give another 30 seconds here in case anyone else would like to ask anything. Otherwise, again, as I had mentioned, do suggest if you go to our website, go to our release notes, there may be something within the release notes that are particularly useful for yourself or your process. We do have some great updates coming to XTM Mobile, as well as you can see there are quite a few updates to our portal, which I believe we'll be doing a webinar on that shortly too. And this would be an entire webinar to itself, so I won't go into too much detail here. All right, well, I think we're all finished with questions. And with that, I'd just like to say, obviously, thank you for everyone for coming. This has been recorded, so if you would like a recording, if someone wasn't able to make it or would like to review this, just let us know. Again, at training@xtm.cloud, be more than happy to get you that recording. Or if you sign up for our on-demand on our website, which show that to you quick here. Go to our academy and then on-demand. Signing up here will give you access to a lot of our recordings. Obviously webinars, but also other great assets and resources. But if you have any additional questions, again, training@xtm.cloud. And with that, thank you. Hope everyone is staying safe. Everyone has a great rest of their week. And take care. Thank you for joining.